Do you remember going to the video store to pick out a movie? Well, I have an interview that you guys need to watch that's involving the last video store, and I think you're going to like it. Stick around and check this out. This is the director and the actor from the movie, The Last Video Store. Guys, welcome to the show Beyond the Void. I thank you so much for coming on. What started as something with Kevin here to the left of me has now brought one of the directors for The Last Video Store, and obviously Tim Rutherford. So we have him here. Thank you for coming, sir.
Well, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed your review, and Kevin said that I needed to check it out. He was definitely right.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. I enjoyed your movie, so and obviously, you know, and Kevin obviously and I have been kind of like back and forth in the chat. We've gotten to know each other pretty quick. We've already had our first fight, I think.
Yeah. A misunderstanding, if you will.
Yeah. I'll save that for you guys another time. But
yeah,
Kevin Martin, who obviously owns The Last Video Store, and that this movie is about, and also stars in the movie as Kevin, is here with us today too. So thanks for getting all this together for us, man.
Hey man, thanks. When you reached out, I'm like, how could I say no, man? I watched a few more episodes of your show with you and some of the other gentlemen on there, and the way you guys shoot the shit about cinema, I'm like, it's just like me and Tim at the pub. I mean, it's like brethren souls of a nerdy goodness, you know?
Right.
So how could we say no?
Yeah. I mean, I think we all do that from time to time. We all like seek each other out. I think that's why I started the podcast. I was like, I don't really have anybody to watch movies with. This kind of sucks. I want to talk about this with somebody, So, and then it just blossoms. So,
yeah.
So
that's great.
How do you guys know each other? I mean, obviously you've worked on the movie together, but you've been doing this for years together. Like, you know each other for many, many years. So can you tell us how you guys met and how that all began?
Tim, do you want to start or you want me to?
Yeah, you started it.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, technically, yeah. So I opened up my shop about back in 2005. So I'm counting on my 20 years. Even back then, opening a video store was a stupid idea to make money and survive. So all I did was get myself another job. I still work in the bar industry at night. But I also lack of money. But we started a film festival here in our city. It was called Dead Fest. And aside from our big annual festival, we had monthly movie screenings of retro cinema. And then we decided, well, why don't we just do a call out to local young filmmakers? I'm going to still call Tim young, even though he's in his 30s, because I'm almost 50. So he's still young in my mind. Anyways, every month, these two young guys kept winning. It was Tim and Cody. Every month they would submit something. And like, it wasn't even close. It was like, and we couldn't give them money. So they'd have to come to the video store to grab us some free movies. And then a friendship was started there. And then it really kicked into gear when one of our festival screenings, we had a very special guest in town. We had Michael Biehn from Aliens and Terminator. And so I did some research and I was like, oh, well, a lot of these fests he goes to, before they welcome on stage, they'll do a clip show of all of his greatest roles, But then it was through certain ideas that they said, well, why don't you guys film like a cool little like short to introduce Michael Biehn? And I'll let Tim take it from there.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, he asked for a reel, and has been our relationship. Kevin asked for one thing, and we gave him another. So we basically just made like a little short film that kind of wrapped around the show reel for all of Michael Biehn's performances as a like kind of little homage. And that's when we finally convinced Kevin to let us shoot inside the video store, because it's a crazy wild business in the film industry when you're just a few people on like a late night kind of running around, knocking things over, stepping on stuff. And Kevin was a little bit anxious to let us in there, but once we got him on screen, it was obvious what we had on our hands. Not only the video store that you can see behind him, but also the just the character that he was, and having to gotten to know him for the last few months, like through Dead Fest and through the video store, and kind of reconnecting at this point, because this would be about like 2008 to 2010 ish,
Yeah.
like in that time when like I thought all the video stores were gone by then. You know, like we had a few kind of corner store video stores still, but like having grown up in the 90s, like it was a big part of growing up and my love of movies. So to like reconnect not only with like a video store, but with this like super nerd who was just
Guilty.
so good and like charismatic on camera that we like, you know, you just like there was no point in like shooting anything else after that. We were like, okay, we're obsessed. So now we're coming in, and through that we actually met our would-be and future producer Greg Jeffs, who's coming to kind of liaise with the Alberta Film Board and Michael Bean and see if we could land some other projects. And he just really kept us going and kept pushing us and just kept we got the perfect location, we got the perfect character, we got the perfect kind of like setup to kind of basically try whatever we want. So we started the Tales from the Lobby series that ran for about a year and a half, and doing these like monthly retro screenings. We would just do little like spoofs on those movies and kind of all encased in the video store. And from that, the story kind of comes to a culmination with the feature film, 12 years later.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's crazy. Wow, you guys have talked about this before, I have a feeling.
A few times. I think, Alex, honestly, more people are fascinated by when they find out, like, they like our shorts and our web series and the movie, but when they realize, like, wait, there's a real video store in this? Like, this is based off an actual video store that still exists. They're like, most people want to talk about that than anything we've done, which is kind of weird, but it's cool though. It's good to see there's still a childlike wonder, no matter where you're from, what your background is, and who you are, about the video store culture, which we've noticed, I think, talking to so many people over the years.
I think it's important to keep it alive. So
yeah, like you said, like it's hard to find people to watch movies with sometimes. And like the video store was like a community that you could go in and talk shop and talk movie. You know, you hear somebody, oh, this was incredible, and you just poke your head up from behind the horror rack and being like, I don't know, man, like that movie had some serious issues. And then you get the video store guy like in there moderating and being like, hey, like no politics, but
oh yeah,
maybe they're right. Maybe that movie was a bit trash, and maybe you're a bit trash for loving it, but like it doesn't stop me from loving you. And I just, I think that kind of community is what we wanted to capture with the shorts, and that like bled out into the film festival, and then of course into the feature length film, where it just like we wanted that reaction, and I think we found a bigger community almost globally now thanks to that feature.
Yeah. Alec, I got to tell you, one of my favorite shorts. We rarely talk about this short that we did from the old Tales from the Lobby series. This is back when whatever movie we were screening at the movie theater, we would do a riff on it in the video store. And the one we never talk about that much is we were showing They Live. And the whole setup of the short we did was I'm working at my store, and the movie police comes in, and they're like taking shit off my shelves. They're like, you can't carry this, can't carry this. And then of course the sunglasses have to be involved. And I put the glasses on, and all these movies on a rack, they're all remakes of movies that we love. And so now I'm seeing the real words. It's like obey, consume, same old crap, corporate garbage. And Josh, who played Viper in the movie, of course, in the shorts, he was like my fictional co-employee. So we were going to do the 9.5-minute fight scene that Piper and Keith David do in They Live in my video store. That just was not plausible, though. I think we swung like 2 fists, and it goes like 8.5 minutes later. The glass. No, it was Josh trying to convince me to put the glasses on, but
yeah.
I think that's the most I've ever seen anybody get kicked in the nuts in a movie.
God, I love that. But yeah, that's going again back 13 years ago filming those. So yeah,
that's great. I think my first introduction to you guys was ABC's of Death 2.5. So I remembered it because I was like, that was one of my favorite ones in the whole thing. I was like, I was like hoping for a bigger kind of showing of that thing, and I saw that one. I was like, oh, this is really creative. I like this one. And it was like the tape monster, right? Like,
yeah. Oh no, it's a VHS god that turned me into like a Power Ranger sort of,
like Ultraman. Yeah.
Ultraman. But by the way, just so you know, it was Tim in the costume because
okay.
Great director Tim. He's a costume builder too, so
Nice.
he built it to his body. He can do the kung fu moves way better than my old rickety bones can. So yeah, so that was a great one. That was a lot of fun to film. Although, like Tim alluded to earlier, though, every time the boys filmed a short at my store, I would get so fucking stressed because they're fucking shit up, throwing shit around. That's a great example where all the ninjas are like grabbing shit off my shelves and like fucking up my rack. So I'm like, God damn it, boys, a little gentler, you know, like, but they never broke a promise. The store actually ended up cleaner every time we did a short after the fact than before we were filming, because my store is indeed a dusty, creepy basement like oddity.
well, I mean, it's kind of like my collection a little bit, you know, it's hard to keep up with, you know. That's the thing I was thinking about is like owning a video store. It's like, I have a hard time loaning out like movies, because every time I do, it doesn't matter who it is, they never give it back. It's always a story, and I don't mind. I want them to see it. So I just tell them, hey, if you want to watch it, you got to come over here and watch it with me.
Ooh, that's good.
So then you know, and then they have to come over. But yeah, there's so many movies that I've loaned out, and it's like, they're like, oh, I would never. And then, of course, so I can't even imagine having a video store where you have this rare fucking DVD that nobody has, or a tape, and then it's like gone.
I've had movies where I put a $50 deposit on it because I know it's out of print. So I'm like, you want your $50 back? Return my movie. Yeah, it's called Collateral Damage, and I actually believe in, you know, in the movie we had a cursed tape. Well, I believe in a thing called cursed movies, and when I say that, there are certain titles I've had in the store for the last 20 years. It doesn't matter how reliable or close a friend that customer is. If they rent this certain movie, it's never coming back, or it's late, or they lose it. One of them was Cannibal Holocaust, and one of them was Martyrs. Always, like every time, like I knew it was never going to return, you know? And like, and you know, it just, certain movies are jinxed, man. Like,
I mean, those are kind of heavy for the general audience. So maybe they were just like stewing on it for a little bit. They're like, what did I just watch?
Yeah, it could be. But honestly, man, people that come to my store, they're not coming for the next Marvel movie. They're coming, hey, Kev, you got Sallow, 120 Days of Sodom, you got Serbian film. But true story, though, my number one best renter and seller last year was Spice World, the Spice Girls movie. And you know why? Because it's out of print in the U.S. and Canada. You can't get it here, but I get my stuff from Australia, and it's still very much available there. So, but yeah, every different strokes, different folks, man. I've had to order in Seasons of Sesame Street for customers, so they can't get them at Walmart anymore, you know? But yeah, I mean, I get labeled as a horror movie store, but, you know, I carry other stuff too. But
so Tim, did you ever go to the store and like hang out like before, like in the beginning, before you really knew each other?
Not actually. I didn't even know it existed until Deadfest, and like kind of, like I said, like kind of reconnected me with that. And then Kevin couldn't get rid of me. Like he's got this couch in front of the TV, and he'll just throw movies on like during the day. I'll just go and like sit on the couch, and it's just like, I'm sure it causes problems because most people aren't allowed to be sitting on the couch, but I would just do it. And I would just sit there all day, like, and hang out whenever I'm back in Edmonton. Like, I'll just go and hang out in the video store. And I love seeing the people like come and go and talk shop with Kevin. I love to see Kevin try and, you know, sell a movie that we both were just jamming on a few minutes ago before somebody walked in. And I just love that little, like the community that kind of comes and goes. So I'd probably say I do more loitering than renting in earnest, but
this is true.
It's all to capture the essence so that you can do the next movie, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Tim, you were never loitering, baby. You were just doing research the whole time. So
yeah, right. Yeah, totally. Not renting anything because I'm broke, guys.
So I noticed that you guys, you know, made a set for the movie place, and I'm curious why you had decided to do the set instead of, is it because you had to do long shoots and stuff like that, or is there another reason?
Well, it was a different part of the country. Like my store is located, like we know the timeline. We're on the same timeline right now. So we're obviously in Western Canada. So the movie was shot in Ontario, close, right outside Toronto. I'll let Tim explain why we had to shoot it there.
Yeah, well, I mean, you just go where the money is. Honestly,
Yeah,
I don't know if I would have shot in the shop itself. It's very small and kind of hard to maneuver once you get that gear kind of in and out and all the crew. Like, you just start having to deal with a lot more than you can really handle. So we just kind of recreated it. I added a few feet here and there, but the dimensions of the shop and kind of moved some of the doors around because of don't have a door unless it's going to get opened. And Kevin's got a few doors in the shop that you're not allowed to go into because it's just piles of stuff. So it just came down to like, well, we want to have the option to like break it down and get the crew. And then, yeah, that's like the money was kind of orientated in Ontario. So they were just like, you're coming here to shoot it. And it's like, well, I don't got any problem shooting in Hamilton. Like Guillermo del Toro is shooting down the street, and it's a pretty buzzing place. So, and we managed to get an incredibly talented Ontario crew. So, I think probably for the best. And then like we can't really shoot in his shop anyway because lawyers would hunt us down and shoot
all the
us
tapes,
because all the tapes, all the labels, all the posters, like got to get clearance for all of that. And I'm a production designer, like by trade. So like I knew all of that going in, that we needed like full control over the space. And so it was kind of, and also Kevin's shop is under a daycare. So, like,
not to mention that part.
Yeah.
The
don't want to
daycare
open a portal to hell over that.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
So, well, I mean, then obviously you had a really nice set too. It's very close to this. I mean, obviously, and I saw the like extras on the disc and everything where it's like, everybody's painting and having a good time. And I was curious actually though, when you did go out and shoot this, how long did it take from like concept to that part? Like when you were ready to film exactly, like how long did it take?
Well, in 2019, we went to South by Southwest with a short called the Videostore commercial. Yet again, Kevin asked for a commercial, and we shot him a short that he couldn't release for 2.5 years because it went through the festivals circuit. So we shot that, and that got us into Frontier's film market. And once we kind of got the go-ahead that we were going to be pitching the feature-length idea, I think that was about 2020, like the beginning of 2020.
It was a pandemic.
And then pandemic.
Wow, yeah.
So a lot of that stuff was kind of on hold. We did the market through like on Zoom, like at the video store, and did our piece, and we got picked up by Blue Finch, our sales agent, and from there it was just the waiting game. Once the pandemic was lifted, we got the money. They handed us the check, and it was like from November, we got the green light. In the beginning of February, we got the money, and we were shooting by the end of that month.
2023, you said?
Almost like 2022, yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So then we had 15 days of principal, and then about like 5 days of extras, like shooting little bits and pieces here and there in Cody's apartment, and at like a studio here in Vancouver, to get some of the reshoots and the pickups. And it's a very VFX heavy movie, so there was a lot of stuff that was just not practical to fit within the 15-day shooting schedule. So we kind of got all those pieces, and then it took Cody about 1.5 years to edit the thing because we were just doing it all on our own. We still have our job, like our day jobs, so we're just editing this thing as we go, pushing and trying to get it into the festival circuit for 2023. And then we were just so blessed to be recognized by Fantastic Film Fest.
Yes.
Who premiered our original short in 2013, The Last Videostore. That kind of like kicked let's take this seriously, guys. And we all kind of like went into the film industry for a few years and learned how to make movies and came back. And it was nice to see that kind of come full circle with Tim League and the cats down in Austin.
Awesome. Yeah. And I know that you guys have like a TV show that you did as well, kind of. Yeah, it's like,
yeah, in the middle there is we did a web series for a Western broadcast company called TELUS out here in Canada. So yeah, we did I think it was 8 episodes or something,
That was
8 minute.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, web series. Like, so yeah, it's like it ended up being about like 45 minutes long, and that was like the first time somebody had like given us a huge chunk of money, and we're just like, let's go, let's do it.
That's awesome. Is that going to ever see the light of day? I know Kevin has kind of wanted it to, I think, because we were talking about it a little bit earlier.
Oh, the web series. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm really like, man, I can't even find it online anymore, Tim. Like, I don't know if it's still on YouTube or if it's gone, but because people that have seen a web series and have seen the movie, they're like, is the movie a prequel to the web series? Because the web series is kind of the opposite of the movie, where the first episode is in the video store, but then the rest of it, I get sucked into the TV, kind of like how the movie ended. And then each episode is bouncing from one bad B movie to another, like Quantum Leap or Sliders, where I got to use my movie knowledge, but I look like the character that they think I am. So, and that was actually the origin of Beaver Lake Massacre, and Prey Stalker is in there. And that's why,
Viper.
and Viper Jackson. So that's why all those characters came back into play into the movie using the best elements. I'm sure I don't even know if I'm exaggerating, but I'm pretty sure like Tim will tell you, like, I think we did like of those guys, they must have like 30 drafts of the feature movie. Like there was like,
wow.
Cause I think the biggest challenge was
Joshua Roach and you, Tim.
Yeah.
I think the biggest challenge, I remember Cody was saying when they were pitching at the film market, is a lot of people liked the shorts, but they didn't have the confidence that we could do a feature movie in a one location. How are you going to keep audience's attention for 85 minutes? And I remember Cody blatantly said, I'm gonna show them we can, and we'll find a way to do it, because it's not a lot of movies in a one location setting. I mean, we're all movie nerds. We can name a few that are good. Cube, great movie.
Sure.
I guess you got to consider Kevin Smith's Clerks to a certain degree. I mean, more or less, it's in one location, but
it makes sense. It's partially there. It's like at least half.
Yeah, exactly. And oh man, this is the trippiest thing for me personally. Speaking of Kevin Smith, the relationship I have with that Clerks trilogy, because I'm literally the same age as like Dante and Randall. So when Clerks came out, 94, I was 18, working retail. Clerks 2 comes out, that ends with them buying the business. That was the year, I was 1 year into owning my video store. And then when I saw the trailer for Clerks 3, they're like, wait, they're fucking making a movie about what they do? Like, they're basically, like the plot of Clerks 3? And I'm like, and we're making a movie about the video store. I'm like, the only difference is I don't need to have a heart attack like the characters do in that movie. I hope I'm around a little bit longer. But yeah, it was really fucking weird. I'd still love Smith to see our movie for some reason. I mean, he seems like a big, happy nerd at heart, but never know.
I think he'd probably get that. I think he would understand it just as much. So
yeah.
I mean, it's
my personal, my relationship with the Kevin Smith Clerks films. I'm like, wow, this is just really mirroring a certain pattern here. And the timeline was eerie.
Well, and just those movies in general really just made everybody want to go out and make a freaking movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's like, it really made it possible for a lot of people to just say, oh, well, I could do that.
I don't have to go to film school.
Right.
Well, and again, like the younger generation, like I guess the younger generation, the 30-year-olds now, but I mean, like you like all the editing systems, like it's all the internet, man. Like you watch tutorials, right? I mean, you don't have to shoot on film, which was the biggest issue back then. Nobody could afford film back in the 80s, 90s. If you're an indie filmmaker, shit's expensive.
I grew up with my father doing a video. He was a videographer, so he had all of the SVHS gear all over the place, and then like 10-pound or I don't know, one of those big cameras that we always carried around. They got smaller as it went on, but
yeah.
But yeah, it's crazy to see how things have changed. I mean, part of the script I was actually curious about with you, Tim, is the elements that you put in this movie. Obviously, you guys all talked about this, but and you added stuff from some of the TV, the web series and stuff like that. But it seemed like it was very intentional to put someone that was like a new person in there, and I think that was a very important part to the whole movie in a lot of ways, because there's a whole new generation that's experiencing the video store for the first time, even though this is the last video store. So was there like a lot of intentional things that you put in this with Josh and everybody that you wanted to make sure that you conveyed in this movie?
Yeah, I think it was important to have, having seen so many interactions of Kevin with people in the community, and a lot of those drafts that he was talking about had like regulars come in and kind of like help out or hinder the situation. But it's just like we're like, oh, let's just think more contained, and of all these interactions that Kevin can have, what's going to be the one person that like he needs to win over? And it was just like, oh, let's have like the next generation of one of his regulars is just like, that is the one person that he like, that doesn't understand him, doesn't know why you like these kinds of like trashy movies and why, like, what a VHS even is, like, only the vaguest idea of that. So let's have that person be the one person that Kevin's like, this is the first person he's talked to maybe in weeks. And it's just like, but he really wants to make like a legacy, like, customer here. Her dad is such a good character, or a good, customer, and like his most loyal friend. So it's just like, I can easily convince her, and it's just like none of that is like hitting. Like, she doesn't. Her goals are so different from Kevin. But I think, like, one of the important things to do with making a movie that's so like rife with nostalgia is often we like some movies get kind of like caught in the like nostalgia trap, that it's just like, well, we're just gonna do it, and it's like we're not gonna like we're just gonna do the thing, and it's just like you're not really like reading into it, or diving into some of the like the aspects of actual nostalgia. You're just like showing me this thing, like, hey, look, it's that thing you remember. And I was just like, we really don't want to get caught in that trap. So what better to do that than to have a character that's like not having any of it.
Right.
Like, she is not here for that nostalgia. She's here for like a different kind of nostalgia. And we wanted to kind of touch on that like that connection with movies and her dad, and having lost her dad. Like, she was trying to find a piece of her dad that like she could connect with now that he's gone. Oh, spoilers. And the,
it's pretty early.
In the first like 6 seconds of the movie. So now that he's gone, like, she's trying to connect with something that was important to him, and she finds this guy who, has all these things, but like they can't connect. So hopefully, we were successful enough. Josh and I were successful enough in kind of taking that nostalgia and kind of not only like imbuing it with like a little bit of like depth and purpose, but also trying to have that like reflect back on our characters. Like, Kevin's whole journey is realizing that the things that he's so nostalgia and protective of are like, Viper is an awful person when he's in the room. Like, like I would imagine being around like an action hero in person would be like really difficult, because they would, your safety means nothing to them. Like,
like Cobra.
They think the whole, yeah, exactly. Or like, well, I mean, he was really based on Hard to Kill, Steven Seagal's character.
Okay.
It's just like he's a predator in all senses of the word. Like, he is not the good guy. That whole movie, he's shooting into the crowds of people. Like, he's just here for the action. He's here to deliver something to an audience that he's supposed to be unaware of. So that we were like, well, let's see what that looks like when we put an action hero in the room with you. Is completely unreasonable and very easily set unhinged.
Yeah, I think you guys handled the nostalgia well, because there's so many movies that I watch, like, sorry, but the Ghostbusters new movies they handle it better than most, but it's still like, exploiting like, hey, look at the dead corpse of my nostalgia childhood, hey,
yeah,
jangling, baby, it's
look at his rickety bones.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't.
Romulus.
See, I still like that movie though.
It had good moments, but oh man, when they didn't work, it did not work.
I think a lot of people, when it comes to franchises in general, they have like, just nowadays we've just had so many of these franchises exist past they were ever supposed to exist. And so now we have so many different generations of people that like so many different things that I think coming together as a whole on it is just going to be very hard with those kind of movies, I think.
Well, I feel bad for today's movie going young generation because growing up for me in the '80s, we had Ghostbusters, we had Indiana Jones, we had Friday the 13th, we had Nightmare on Elm Street, and guess what? They're getting the same thing, but they're getting a watered down version of it because, like, I know there's still original cool stuff coming out, but
Sure.
I mean, and like guys, like, what is this generation's like landmark movies like that are original and not based off something or not a remake or not a prequel or but
it's kind of true.
I guess I get cynical, man. I'm like there's no more maverick directors. The studios are all corporations, and the corporations have shareholders, and shareholders they don't care about creativity, they care about content and pay me. Are we making money? Let's go back to what works, the old tried, true, and tested, and
well, I mean, but that's just it, though, is like what works for us in retrospect was a massive gamble and often a huge failure for the people that created them. And it's just like they were made out of risk and a challenge, and that's what makes them memorable. And they were made by people that wanted it to be something special. They want the crews and all those people working on it, like they needed it to be awesome.
It was because, like gold rush times.
Exactly, like a whole industry is just like hinging on this like video era of like it's a lot to do with quantity and like how much you can get out and how fast. But there's also a lot of like quality, and I think some of the greatest movies that we would look back on that line these video stores are the movies that were made with all of those risks, all of that passion, and all of that like drive to make something special. And not to say that movies don't do that. I think a lot of filmmakers are moving back towards that. I've seen Nosferatu. Like that's not a movie that is necessarily a sellable contemporary idea, but it just like understood exactly what the horror fans loved about movies because they themselves, as making it, they loved it. And it was also a massive risk to take a non-contemporary filmmaking style and bring that to the forefront, to be one of the movie or this year's biggest movie. And it's just like,
they put a lot of thought into the steps back then, because the passion and everything that they wanted to put into it, I think, we're definitely, I think we're leaning towards the indie space again, which is, in part by all this tragedy that we had because of the 2020, and then, and then all the like theaters going down, and then like people were like, well, we got to create entertainment, so what do? We got to like sit here and do something. And then what was it? I guess it was 2023. It's just a wave of everything from there that just like piled onto us on this whole year. So, and yours is one of them. So,
yeah, exactly. And riding that wave for sure, like of taking that risk and trying to put our love of movies and filmmaking, the process itself, like kind of forward in the hopes that we find the people that resonate with that. And, like it used to be the video store, but, now we got cool podcast shows to kind of meet our kin on.
Yeah, it's different now for sure.
Oh, it totally is. But I mean, again, harkening back to like on the set of the video store itself, obviously there were 3,865 titles on that shelf, all VHS and all fake titles. But the titles obviously were inspired by those Full Moon, those Charles Band movies, like those the movies you'd only find at a video store. They never hit theaters in the 80s.
Or like the Golem movies, like the
oh man, as a kid, if I saw a movie that started with the Canon logo,
I know,
I'm in for a treat. I'm in for something special, and it's funny because when I'm sure Tim could cover this more, but when we reached out to, what real posters can we legally have in this movie? Draft House was cool. Tim League said, yep, use it. Obviously, Black Fawn up here in Canada. That's why, and our good buddies Astron 6, Manborg and the editor, and obviously, right? And Charles Band, I apparently that's why there's Full Moon cases on the shelf, because he was like, yep, use them.
He's like that.
Never met the man, but I'm like, but it's just like the spirit of like Charles Band was a maverick back then, right? I'm like going from Empire
Decades.
to creating Full Moon and still rocking and rolling.
That was a really sweet spot for me. Like, you know, that was like, I always look forward to what Full Moon was going to do like next. And it's funny, I look back on them and they're fond, nostalgic memories. They're not as great as I remember, but
no.
I fucking loved those movies, man. I watched them over and over and over.
Dude, every time a new Puppet Master was coming out, I was jacked. And they got worse and worse, but it didn't matter. I'm like, I'm totally watching the shit out of this. By the way, Puppet Master 2 is the best out of all of them. But
I think you might be right on that one. I like that one a lot.
I used to say part 3 because it had bigger production values. They shot it in the Universal backlot it was World War II Nazi era, and they're like, wow, these sets actually they shot it outdoors, like not on a soundstage.
yeah. They were outside. Wow.
Yeah, they could afford outside shooting. That's crazy.
on a 10-day film shoot. Shooting, that's crazy.
Well, and I don't know about Tim, but maybe you know. You were talking about how the 80s and we grew up in, you know, all these movies, all the sequels and all these other things. I don't know. I always hear people like complain about sequels now. Whereas when I was a kid, I was fucking excited about sequels. Like, I really was.
Let me tell you guys, I know you guys are probably a couple years, you're a little bit younger than me. The greatest year of sequels was 1989. I shit you not.
88, 89 for me, for sure.
You had Ghostbusters 2, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, Nightmare on Elm Street 5,
oh yeah,
Friday the 13th Part 8, Halloween 5, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. They all came out that glorious year. You had another Bond movie show up. You had man, I mean, it was, and you're right. As a kid, we fucking loved sequels because we, you know, it was like going to your favorite restaurant and your parents are telling you, hey, guess what? We're gonna go back to that restaurant next month. No way. And there's gonna be new food items, but it's the same restaurant that you love, and like that's what a sequel is. Obviously, one of the fake movies in our movie was Beaver Lake Massacre 4,
right?
And I know, and Tim knows this to be true. I specifically said it's got to be Part 4 because obviously it's a Friday the 13th base. My personal favorite is the final chapter. I think it's the greatest slasher sequel from the 80s. Like it's got everything you want in a horror movie sequel. We had a recent screening of it here in my city, and I got to introduce it at my buddy's film festival, and it was like 400 people sold out in the theater.
Oh, nice.
To watch it. And because, you know, like the old saying goes, I think I say it in the movie too, and I say it to my customers in the real store, is like, look, these movies aren't good for you. They're like a Big Mac. They're, you know, probably not the best choice, but God damn are they tasty. You know, it's a guilty pleasure personified.
What about you, Tim? Do you have any sequels that you were a big fan of growing up?
Growing up, I loved The Fly 2 because I loved The Fly, and I just like it frightened me so bad. Like, I mean, obviously now there's like, as like a filmmaker and a director, like rewatching The Fly 2, there's like more real world and like obvious things that frighten me about like why'd they do that. But like when I was growing up, like I wasn't really thinking about that kind of stuff too much. So I was like, and then I did also love The Lost World. Jurassic Park was one of my favorite. That was on the repeat a lot. You know, I was probably about like 10 or 12 when that came out. So
is that the one where they start flying, where they finally show the like pterodactyls and stuff?
No, that's the third one.
Is it the third one? Okay, I always forget.
Third one. The second one's with Jeff Goldblum and they push the thing off the cliff.
Oh, that's where he had his gymnast daughter or whatever, and she does like the gymnastics.
Yeah, the most insane line of all time.
And Vince Vaughn was in that movie. I always forget Vince.
Vaughn. He's basically the bad guy, you know, like depending on who you side with. Yeah. Well, I mean, he caused all of that trouble. Yeah.
Oh, you know what?
All the locks.
If we're talking about underappreciated sequels, Predator 2 is
that's a really good one. I love that movie. I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah, I mean it holds up. I mean, we're here talking about Charles Band movies. Like, who are we to say it's no good? But...
we clearly don't have taste. No
we have a very specific taste.
No, boys, this is a true story. My buddy got to meet Bill Paxton before he passed away, and he wanted to get his VHS copy of Predator 2 signed. And Bill Paxton looked at him. He's like, you want me to sign this? He's like, dude, I loved this when I was 10 years old. And I guess Paxton looked at my buddy and goes, yeah, and I acted like I was 10 years old in this movie. But, hey.
He's like, this is a document of my worst takes.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it shows so much, like of the world of the Predators that I absolutely love it. Is it unbelievable that, Lethal Weapon is running around chasing an alien? Yeah, but who gives a fuck?
Fuck, I don't know. Well, actually, now you mentioned Lethal Weapon, you want to talk about fucking feeling old. I'm 48 years old. I remember watching Lethal Weapon. I love those movies. Do you know fucking Danny Glover was only 41 years old when he said, I'm getting too old for this shit?
Wow.
48.
Holy shit.
What I do for a living, I'm like, I'm getting too old for this shit, Good Lord. But when I was a kid watching those movies, I thought Glover, because you have no concept of how old somebody is. You're like, I think he's like 60,
Right, that's what I was thinking too. Like,
yeah.
God, that's kind of depressing now.
Dude, it's totally depressing.
Tim, you're doing all right, but we're dying over here.
I'm only a few sleeps away. I'll tell you what. 41 is not far.
Well, let me ask you this: so, if what do you think is going to happen with horror in the future here? Like, now that you guys have made a movie that's kind of reached the hearts of a lot of people and maybe needs to reach a lot more, what do you think is going to happen with the industry here? Do you think it's going to keep going indie and then eventually indie's going to get ripped off by the mainstream, or what do you think?
Yeah, the cycle is renewed.
Right.
Kevin, you talk about it. You got the review.
Well, I mean, okay, I think, and Tim, you could chime in, please do. But this is just my opinion. Horror movies aren't like you said, the film industry is different. Streaming has changed everything, and there are so many streaming sites now. It is bonkers. So again, going back to, I think it's less about creativity, more about content. So I think maybe more of these streaming sites are like, just give us whatever you got. So maybe they will take more chances because they're desperate. They're like, we got to fill a quota now. Like, I hope they're desperate enough to hey, we saw your Videostore movie. You guys want to do a TV version of that? Does it get episodical? We're in. Awesome. But
I see what you mean. Kind of like how the videotape market was a little bit. Like, where they were like, we'll just take anything, just give it to us.
Well, and that's how Charles Band, remember Band, he signed his Full Moon deal with Paramount. Paramount was putting up Puppet Master. People forget that. Our Canon Films, they signed with MGM. MGM was distributing their stuff. So you get a little market. But, obviously with your YouTube channel, you watch a ton of genre movies. And I'm relatively sure you'll agree with me. The best shit, at least for me, it's coming from other countries. It's coming from like my top one last year. And I'm sure you've seen it. You probably even reviewed it in your show. I had a buddy of mine. He runs a film festival in Toronto. And it was a March, I want to say. He sends me the screener. He goes, Kev, watch this movie. Do not watch trailer. Just go into it blind. And it's a Spanish movie. I'm like, okay. And it was called The Coffee Table.
Yes, that's my number one. Are you joking?
Dude, right? And I watched this.
That's fucking crazy, dude. I thought I was everybody's been yelling at me about that. What the fuck? It's not a fucking horror movie.
I'm like, dude, this movie is wild. I have sold it because I obviously have the shop for 20 years. I talked to enough of my customers. They trust my judgment. And I'm like, just do not watch trailer. Right. Watch this fucking movie. And so you can rent or you can buy in my store, right? But if you rent something and you like it, and they're like, I'll just buy it, Kev. I'll just knock a few bucks off. Everybody that's rented the coffee table in my store is like, you know what? Fuck it. I just need to own this for my collection. I'm like, yeah, you do. And I don't like giving away spoilers to movies, but there are certain movies. I know the world we live in, and a lot of people get triggered. So all I ever ask the customers is before you rent this movie that I'm telling you nothing about, do you have a newborn child? No. Okay, all right. You can watch it then. Yeah.
That does not help, by the way. That makes it way worse.
Do you know what I tell them? What's it about? I'm like, it's about a couple, and the husband really wants to buy this gaudy 1970s coffee table, and the wife has designed the whole thing. So she's like, fine, you can have your coffee table, but just look after our newborn child this afternoon, and I'll be back because we're having dinner with your brother. And then I just say, and then something happens with the coffee table, and the rest of the movie is pure anxiety. And that's the best way I can describe it without actually, giving the details away of the movie.
Yeah.
But you've seen it. You know what I'm talking about.
I take all of that, Kevin, as a counter to everything that you basically just said, though. I think people are exhausted with franchises. because we've been betrayed for so many years and been subject to like basically nothing but content. But I would say, like, if you do take a step back and look at some of the opportunities and some of the like great moves that are being made by horror film and their filmmakers and the audiences themselves, that like we get movies like The Substance and Nosferatu and all of these movies that are like they're nominated for Oscars, and like that was a rare thing. Like when a horror movie would be up for accreditation by like the Academy and the Golden Globes and all these other things, and we're seeing these movies, they're also being made for a third or a quarter of the price of some bigger budget productions, and
That's a great
they're
point, Tim.
selling just as well. And it's just like, for me, that's a very obviously, as a filmmaker in the like horror and kind of genre
Sure.
like filmmaking stream, like I don't necessarily want $250 million to make a movie. Like that seems insane to me. I'd rather make 100 movies for 2.5 million or 10 for 25. Like there's a way to break down those budgets to get like Full Moon did, like to put out a lot of interesting and challenging like content and kind of rediscover that. And I think I would argue that we're almost like seeing a bit of resurgence. But even when you take a step back, it's easy to see that maybe it never actually went away at all. Horror has always been kind of a divisive genre that like people are going to love it and hate it. It's there almost for that reason, to kind of trigger that like response in people. Some people get excited, some people don't want to look at it, but there's always like there's always a space for it in the media conscious. And then like I think that horror has never really backed down. It's never really gone anywhere. It's taken a few side steps, but like I think it's been on this path of evolution that, for one, maybe leading us back to like a 60s kind of 70s sensibility, where it's just like, let's draw from like tension and like discomfort, and instead of just like, we did the big blood splash, we did the big smash, we've tried to touch on old stories, like Friday the 13th 29 can roll out and people aren't going to be surprised by that. But then we get a movie like Talk to Me and like Smile, and those are like, they're fresh, and not everybody is like, oh, those aren't necessarily the movies for everybody, but they're effective in what they're trying to do, which is take a new approach. All right,
I'm raising my hand like,
yeah.
Mr. Cartel.
I mean, I love the passion because that makes me excited.
Everything you said is true, Tim. I will say this, that actually struck a chord. Again, everything I'm talking to you guys about is, and Tim knows, it's how I just talking with customers in my store every day, kind of like I'm you talking on your YouTube channel, just having these discussions, right? Even though I'm an 80s kid, and yeah, I grew up on 80s movies. Like, I remember my old man, we got our first VCR in like 83, and it was a choice between a VCR and a second car, because that's how expensive VCRs were back then, right? The old top poppers. Yeah. But obviously being surrounded by all the cinema in my shop, I'm an 80s kid, but man, if I had to say, I think the 1970s for horror movies was the most decade where they were giving us the most challenging cinema. I think that's what Tim was sort of alluding to. The 80s was all about excess, like sequels, gore, slashers, which I love. Don't get me wrong. Again, that's McDonald's, though. Let's go back to 70s, where maybe it's a little more fine dining, because the movies that were coming out, they were risky movies, and they were super original. Obviously, we could talk about Last House, Texas Chainsaw, Don't Look Now with Donald Sutherland, obviously OG Exorcist. One of my personal favorites is The Sentinel. Like
that's a good one.
The OG Omen. Like, these are really cool movies. And then again, more about the less you see, the better. We won't talk about the person himself, but like Polanski's Apartment trilogy. Rosemary's Baby, Tenet, Repulsion. These are all really challenging movies, right?
Sure.
And then didn't somebody say in some documentary the minute Jaws, Jaws, by the way, is my favorite movie of all time. Just
okay.
I think it's the perfect movie. Never change the shark with CGI. It's perfect, even with the fake looking shark. It's brilliant. But that was the first summer, quote unquote, blockbuster. And that's when budgets started like, oh my God, this will be made $100 million. So let's keep going.
And then it was The Exorcist right after that, right?
It was before that.
Exorcist was it before it? I can't even remember.
Yeah, the cool thing about The Exorcist, baby, it opened up the day after Christmas in 1974. So church business went fucking through the roof. Dudes went from the theater to their churches immediately.
They were like, "Thank you."
And I got to ask you, did you ever see a movie called The Ninth Configuration?
Yes,
Yes, well, I think it's
a trippy fucking movie, man.
Dude, it's in the Exorcist universe because the main dude. Or not the main dude, but the astronaut is the guy that they're having the party in the Exorcist.
Oh yeah, Kerrigan.
An astronaut, and then the movie opens up, and he's like freaking out about going to space because like there's nothing up there. I'm like, holy shit, this is William Peter Blatty's world. And by the way, Exorcist 3, speaking of great sequels, is still one of the best sequels, and the only Exorcist movie that counts aside from the OG. But no, the 70s felt more like they were risk taking, like Tim said. And maybe we are getting back to risk taking because. It's cheaper to film now. I think another thing Tim was alluding to that I know me and Tim have talked about over many of Jameson's is the fact that you have your $200 million budget movies and then you have your $1 million budget movies. But what happened to like the $20 to $25 million budgets where it was a bit more money, but the studios would be more willing to take a chance on something original because it wasn't like you're not going to bankrupt the studio. And we all know horror movies are bankable no matter how fucking bad they are because Blumhouse has shit the bed on so many movies lately. If they put them out in October, people are going to go see them because it's October. By the way, why fucking release a horror movie in July? Me and Tim went to go see The Last Voyage of Demeter in like hot ass July. And it wasn't amazing, but we both enjoyed it.
Sure.
But bombed, right? This movie should have came out in fucking October. It would have made probably, I guarantee you, 3 times it would have made the money. Because you're like, hey, it's October. Balls in the air. Let's go see a horror movie. What's playing?
They're called quarterly return reports, Kevin. That's the that's the unfortunate, uncreative, and super unsexy side of the film industry.
Mm-hmm.
Is that you finish a movie at a certain point and you need to put it out because you're just holding on to open rights and there's all these other things that come up. But like to that point, like we're getting a lot of interesting horror movies, and I think streaming has done a great thing, like the transition into digital, into like accessibility, where we're hearing a lot of like a lot more like unique voices kind of coming forward, and like we're kind of bringing up those stories, and those are getting $10 to $20 million, which is I think probably the most reasonable amount of money you should spend on a movie. But like at the end of the day, like we're getting a lot more content, and some of it is not very watchable, but like I would argue that horror and genre films have never not been subject to that, where you're looking at the output of 100 movies and 50 of them are good, 30 of them are great, and 10 of them are legendary. And it's just like, and then the other 50, like you couldn't be, you couldn't be paid to sit and watch it. You'd rather watch your favorite movie again than have to sit and watch
digging through piles of that for a while. That's what I
exactly.
And I hate to hate a movie. I just don't bring it up.
Yeah. I mean, I sit and watch it. If I start a movie, I finish it. Like no matter how bad it gets, I just try and stick it out. Like, I might dip out for a smoke or go look at my phone for a little bit, but that's like
when it gets to the end of the year for me, it's like I got the top however many I got to do, and it's like there's sometimes that I have to I'm like, all right, I just can't. I've watched this for 40 minutes. I gotta go.
I mean, you are getting paid and you can't even watch it. So in a way,
Well, you know what a trick is sometimes is obviously when I used to program film festivals, you get all these movies. If there's subtitles on the screen, you can just like kind of watch it in sort of like half speed or double the speed. So you just burn right through it. Like, yeah, I'm getting the gist. This looks like it's going to be good now. Hit play. Slow it down. But
you can totally feel the suspense so much faster that way.
Dude, there are some movies where you're like, oh, geez, yeah. But I will say, again, this goes back to alluding to video store culture. Like Tim said, if he starts a movie, he's going to finish it. Now, my theory on that is slightly different, and this is the difference between streaming and video stores. If you're at home on you're on your favorite streaming site, you'll be scrolling for 45 minutes. Like,
oh my God.
And let's say you choose something. If you're not into it within 10 minutes, you're like, meh, I'll get back to it. Odds are you'll probably never get back to it.
It's so true. I sometimes just like talk myself out of watching something.
Yeah, I know.
And then I'm like, I'm on TikTok. What am I doing? What is that?
Yeah, I know. Oh, dude, I got a rule. I put my phone in the other room. Can't have the phone on you or else I'm never going to focus. But the point is, if you make the effort to come to your local video store, if you do have one in your city, wherever you are, them is listening. You peruse the shelves, you look at the covers, and you're like, you know what? I'm going to rent 3 movies this weekend. And I might have picked the 3 shittiest movies ever, but I'm going to watch all 3 of them because if nothing else, I get to go back to the video store and talk to that video store guy going, dear Lord, what a pile of garbage this was. But I can vent to you about it. And that almost makes it worth the rental alone, Like,
right.
Let me tell you why this is terrible, So there's a magic quality about it.
Well, speaking of going back to the store, you like that segue? Is there going to be a sequel? I mean, are we thinking that maybe we might have some people return to some things and have another adventure on our hands? I mean, will it go outside of the video store? Or will they get caught in the streaming service? Or will there be a remake of the last video store that they have to combine?
I mean, no spoilers here, Alex. She's going to give away our entire plot. No, like we're in talks. We're currently like developing like a 10 episode, like 20 to 30 minute kind of episode run. Following very similarly like the lines of the web series where he is like pulled into the movies themselves and is having to survive that way. And he'll be along the ride with like Castor and like we're sure to see Viper return and like probably as also like once again the bad guy and then maybe a good guy. There was an idea from a long time ago that it was like Viper and all the different versions of him. They're literally like collecting the different versions of Vipers throughout the movies to like make like a dream team,
like the one or something.
It turns out, yeah, exactly. It turns out they're all insane. So like kind of the story unfolds that way, and it was going to end like with them basically getting like downloaded into the streaming service. So like we'll see. Like it's in the air. We're talking about it. We're developing it. Like currently we're working on other movies like kind of in the genre territory. But if there's enough interest and drive now that the Blu-ray is out and seeing a lot of love kind of globally thanks to Arrow Video and soon to be coming out here on Black Fawn. So and then eventually onto an actual streaming service. But we'll see how the VHS sales do because that's a thing that they're doing for us. So
people collect a lot of them, man.
Yeah. So we'll hopefully we'll be back on here telling you all about the release date of our TV show, and we can see Kevin kind of live through the adventures of multiple different movies, more genres this time, including but not limited to rom-coms and sword and sandals and the things that we basically couldn't afford on this budget. We're like we chose these movies very intentionally to like what our budget level was, which was certainly not $20 million.
Alex, the first time that me and Tim found out that Telus that was going to give us the web series money, we sat in a pub and within an hour, Cody was there too. I think we punched out like 30 fake movies I could fall into, and some of the ideas were just fucking bonkers. And they're like, we can't afford that, dude. Like, I'm like, but like even like Tim mentioned the sword and sandals, but like there was a couple other ones where like, ooh, this is a risky move, but well, it could be a lot of fun too. The first time, like I don't know, I guess maybe you don't know, but we tried to film the movie back in 2014 with no money originally, and built another fake video store set here in the city. But that concept was so bonkers that within 20 minutes of the movie, the store was destroyed by a terrestrial tentacle monster. And me and Viper, Josh, who was at that time just a delivery boy coming to my store, we're in the real world. But the real world wasn't the real world either. It was like this weird analog style world. And we're going to go all like Guillermo del Toro-y, George Lucas-y with like all these weird characters and creatures and like, you know, like a Jabba the Hutt kind of palace, but dedicated like analog and VHS and shit where we had to, and we found out that my original, I was abandoned at the video store as a baby because my mom couldn't afford the late charges. So that's why I was raised there.
That's great.
Left the store and left me to it because he had to go fight in the format wars. And that war that nobody knew happened lasted all 28 minutes because we were eviscerated by the robots of the streaming world. Like it was just this insane plot line. Like, and we could shoot this for $10,000? Absolutely. No, we could. It was a fun script though, but that was the original idea.
I mean, there's a lot of ideas I could come up with just off the top of my head, just thinking about the formula. You know what I mean? Like, it just sounds like it's just a fun idea because I mean, all of us want to be in those movies, and you know, just like how the Wax Museum or Wax, was for people back in the day. Yeah, like I was thinking, like the sequel you call it. What was it? Was it
Lost in Time?
Lost in Time. Yeah, you can call it the last video store. Lost in Time.
Yeah, the bad guy in that was the second in command in Die Hard 1. It was that amazing. Yeah, the long blonde hair dude.
That's
was the main
right.
Patty. Yeah, they kept jumping through. Yeah, no, I mean the concept is, you're right. The concept is like it's like the yellow pages of like B movies. You can just flip any page you want. Like, hey, we can do this. We can do this. You're not confined. It's just the video store is the heart of the movie, I think. I remember before the movie came out, and I was a little bit perturbed myself, the way they were like sort of promoting our movie, kept calling it a horror movie. Like, it's not a horror movie. Like, I didn't want people to be disappointed, like going in like, oh, it's a horror movie. I'm like, no, it's not. I know you guys see Castor Creedy, the Jason knockoff, and like, oh, I hope they don't get the, you want to, people are like, how do you describe the movie? And I don't know if Tim agrees with me, but I describe it as it's a B movie video store adventure film. And it's all I ever tell my customers that are now renting it off my shelves, which is really cool here at the store. I'm like, I hope you laugh twice, and I hope you remember the power and the magic of the video store when you were growing up. Here in Edmonton, they don't have to remember because they're like, hey, it's Kev's store. It's right down the street. But other cities, I think it struck a chord with people that remember that era. Because video stores are universal. Somebody in Russia or China can watch our movie, and they had video stores. They're like, oh, I don't know who these people are, but I remember what those cases are behind them and that what that room looked like.
VCDs.
Oh, dude! When I first opened up to get all the cool Asian cinema, placed at we have every city has like a Chinatown, right?
Sure.
We had ours. I used to go to this place, and they had the VCDs of like all the Jackie Chan and Jet Li movies before they were even out here, and I used to like scoop them off them and bring them to my store like a year before they actually hit theaters here in North America. I'm like, I already got the bootleg for you boys. That was a wild west of like getting those titles everybody else did.
Sweet time. It was like, it was about 2000, 2004, somewhere in there. Mm-hmm. About that time. Cause like
that's exactly it. Yeah.
Yeah. They had all those. And I remember I'm pretty sure I was just talking about this today, but Biozombie was one of the VCD titles. And they have VCDs in the movie too. So it's like, I
saw you talking about, I saw your earlier show. You talked about Biozombie. You talked about Junk. Junk was the Japanese. Yeah. But obviously I saw the image of Versus, and boy, do we love Versus over here. Like it's Tim, wasn't it when we were in Austin there and Cody went to the 7
Tack, yeah.
Or the corner store and met Tack.
He ran into Tack himself. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
And like Cody loves versus. That was the movie that got Cody, the co-director and editor and VFX supervisor of this movie. That's what like got him into movies.
Really?
And it was like, yeah, like that was
Oh man.
like he's seen that and like seen what Rie Kitamari had done and was just like, oh, we could do that. And for many years, Cody and I had a meeting in high school and we would shoot shorts. Like it was like in the forest, fight scenes.
Yeah.
The guy that plays Viper, he went to school with us, so he's like
That's
he's
awesome.
the action guy in all of our movies, and it's just like it's that essence of like like a risky move, doing kind of like a unique thing, very much in like the modernity of the digital age, like like now anybody can go and shoot
It's true.
anything. How are you going to stand apart? And Rie Kitamari, like he definitely showed that like you can absolutely stand apart, from like a Yakuza gangster to Evil Dead. Like, well, why not just both?
And then
like,
put
there's
a
lot
weird
of good
immortal
arguments to
story
be
on
said
it.
Yeah.
yeah, and then like Highlander also later, like
Yeah.
when you get down to it, I think there's like that influenced us a great deal, like that era of things, and I would say we're seeing a lot of that reflected in contemporary horror, where you're not just like a horror movie with like a slasher. It's just like there are other elements in other genres, kind of like finding their way into the genre films that are being created now, and hopefully we were able to kind of capture that essence as well by having so many different genres play into the movie, where we would shift music and shooting style, and like even the dialogue takes like different turns because of the way that those movies work within those genres. So we're like, no modern movie can be made just a single thing anymore. I don't think so. And yeah, I attribute that to Versus.
It's like
and
alchemy
its influence
now.
on us.
You got to do alchemy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's nothing's new, and if you can't, although I do find that if you only do two, people get really upset. I don't know why. They're like, Are you a comedy or are you a horror movie? This is too much.
You don't understand how it goes. Like, and the other thing, Alex, is I don't know, you might not have picked up on it, but because we're Canadian, and obviously all the supporting actors that showed up in our movie, I think we all just realized after it was all done, I think we made unintentionally a Canucksploitation movie using friends and people we know from all who made other great Canadian independent movies that all kind of chipped in to help us out. From obviously, Lowell Dean had a cameo in it, who made the Wolf Cop movies. Who just did Chris Jericho. Obviously, Matt Kennedy and Adam Brooks from Astron 6. Steve Kostansky obviously us as well. And here's a weird fact a lot of people don't know, is two weird facts from our movie. One, the dummy for Taggart that's laying there after his head comes off and it's just in front of the bath, they use that same dummy on In a Violent Nature that same month.
Really?
Yeah, we were just borrowing it, and they needed it to shoot in the woods in Ontario for a Violent
Psycho
Nature.
Gorman as well. Like, it's one of the corpses in Psycho Gorman. Like, it's seen a lot of love.
That's amazing.
And another cool detail, and I give all the praise to Tim, the television model that's in the video store is the Tim found this thing. You go ahead, tell him, Tim. Tell him.
Well, if you haven't noticed, it's the 1981 Sony Panasonic version, like the same version from Poltergeist. Like,
nice.
It was their brand new TV.
I was gonna say it's either that or fucking Videodrome, and either one would have been fucking great for me.
That would have been even better, more Canadian.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But hey,
Sanyo shit.
Poltergeist never fails, man. That's a great movie.
I love recommending Poltergeist to my customers that have young kids that they want to get their kids into horror movies. Like, what's a good horror movie for my kids? I say Poltergeist because I saw it when I was a kid. And also, the good thing about Poltergeist is, from a child's point of view, is if you're worried as a parent, no characters die in the movie. Like, nobody actually dies in that movie, right? So,
spoiler alert, Kevin. I'm just kidding.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we won't talk about the real story with the actors behind the snes. That's a whole
that's the real stuff right there.
The curse. Yes. Curse films, my friend.
Well,
yeah.
I think I think that's a pretty good place to stop. Guys, if you haven't seen the movie, go see the movie. Go pick it up. I think you'll enjoy it. I think if you enjoyed our conversation here with Tim and Kevin, which thank you, by the way, for coming on, I think you'll appreciate the movie in a lot of ways. It really does kind of bring back the memories. And I think for newer people, too, it might make them see what we love so much about collecting or, you know, just film in general. So, but yeah, do you have any parting words for everybody today? Or tonight?
Support your local video stores. Support your local podcasters. Support your horror nerds and your Comic-Cons, and just love being in love with what you do love, because people will eventually love you for it.
And on that note, I agree with everything my man just said. And I'll say, no matter how crappy things might feel in the world, or if you're having a tough time in life, the power of cinema and the power, it's an escape. It literally is an escape. And honestly, I haven't made a dime in my video store, but having this shop is my escape from whatever's going on out there. You know what? It doesn't matter who you are, what your background is, what you believe in. The one thing we can always argue about peacefully is which sleepaway camp sequel is the best one. You know, and that's the beauty of cinema. These are the things we should be arguing about, and not the crap that we can't control. But no,
I feel like that's a personal burn there for Tim and you.
Not at all. I'll talk more about it off the air.
Okay. Well, thank you guys, and we'll see you next time.